So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 11 of Meet the Judge. And tonight, my guest from Ireland via Spain is the one and only Mr. Michael Forte. Michael is one of the dog world's most sought after judges, highly respected for his honesty and knowledge by both exhibitors and his fellow judges. A great company to have on a judging panel. On a personal level in this house, Michael is family. So good evening, Michael. Good evening, Michael.
Hi,
hello, Michael.
how are you doing, Carl? You well?
How are you?
I'm great.
Enjoying the sunshine. How is Spain?
It's really lovely. And, we're in a great town called Althea, and it's on the Costa Blanca. But, it's really lovely, little town, very pretty. Everybody's so cautious. There had no sort of, nobody's had the virus here. And yet everybody inside and even going around the streets all wear masks, always. You rarely see somebody, maybe a child or two, but that's it. But everybody's so conscious of being careful, and it's great. You feel very comforted by it, you know.
And generally in Spain, what's the situation?
Well, I think in Barcelona and other places, it started to climb again.
Right.
Because I think the nightclubs and stuff have opened, and more people have been, they open till 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, and they've been close contact. And if they're drinking, they maybe get, whatever. So, but not so many deaths actually.
Right.
So it's because younger people are getting it; they're stronger, and so they're surviving. Thank God, Really.
And I know they had to shut down some areas of Spain because of the tourists and the nightlife was just going absolutely mad.
But I think the young people don't realize that. They think, oh well, we're okay, but they could give it to their grandparents or their parents, and the guilt. I mean, imagine bringing that home and your mother, father die, and you brought it home. It's hard to live with, actually. I can understand it too. I mean, people have been shut down, and and as I said, if there was another lockdown, more difficult for people because
absolutely.
And now they know what to expect, so it's harder. I can appreciate it. Yeah.
So I think there'll probably be a lot of people who are very jealous of your color right now. You are very tanned.
And it's not sprayed; it's a real one.
So Michael, let's we'll kick off. So when you were growing up, did you have dogs in your life as a child?
Yes, I did. And although you brought me up now to a very sad moment in my life, because I've no Irish blood at all. Okay. Both my grandfathers were Italian. I had a French grandmother and a Scottish grandmother from Edinburgh. And my parents had come to Dublin to see friends. And I was actually born 7 weeks too early.
All right.
As you see, I survived, so no problem there. But then when I was fit enough, obviously, to go home with them, they lived then, my father was from Verona, so we lived there for maybe 2.5 years, I think. Okay. But then tragically, my dad died when he was on a business trip, a traffic accident in Kuala Lumpur, of all places, yes, very far away. So then, obviously, I was too young, so I didn't realize. And my mother, obviously very sad, decided to go home to her father and sisters and brothers. So we then moved down to Sorrento. And really, then I was there for a few years, so I remember that. And I adored my grandfather. I mean, I loved my grandfather. And he's probably, my mother and my grandfather, the biggest influence on my life, I think. And he had 4 passions in his life. He had, he loved his family, dogs, he loved opera. And being a real Italian, it was an opera. So in the house, in the gardens, all you could hear all day and in the evenings was Bellini, Donizetti, Verdi, all the other Italians. And but then his other passion was suddenly the records would stop, and he loved a Portuguese singer, fabulous Portuguese singer called Amália Rodrigues. And so he would suddenly put that on and play 2 or 3, and then an opera would come back on. And you know, it's amazing how you grow up and you're influenced. My three are opera, dogs, and Amalia Rodriguez. And now that I have at home, you know, and now that I have at home Google, I just have to say what I want. So, you know, I'll be walking around the house doing something. I say, oh, hey Google, play Amalia Rodriguez, and up she comes. So I'm getting very like my grandfather as we get older. So anyway, you know where this interview is going now. You've asked a simple question, Colin, and
could be here for 2 hours.
To the S. So in the house and garden, running around were rough collie and English cockers, which I love, and also German shepherds. So that was dogs. And then my mother, when I was about 5 or 6, said, you know, you really should have a dog of your own. And I said, oh yeah, great, I want one. So I don't know, I can't remember how, she must have given me a book or something to look through. And I said, I want one of those. And she looked and she said, oh, please, Michael, no, not a terrier. It was a Cairn Terrier. Please, no. Because, you know, all these dogs got on so well with each other in the house. You know, she said it could change it. Man. So, like, for 4 months, it was, oh, no, I want a Cairn Terrier. It's the only dog I've ever wanted in all my life instead of, you know. So, my grandfather then came to my side and he said, well, you did say he could choose, so let's get one. And we did. And, you know, in 4 months, 5 months, that little Cairn Terrier wanted to be the boss. Mother, in a way, was right. But luckily, all the other dogs just let it be. It just became the boss. So there was no problem. So that was that. And then all my schooling then was, I was in England for all my schooling. So I didn't do anything with dogs then, actually, apart from if I went to be with friends and stay for weekends and stuff. I know one of my good friends, his parents did a lot of shit. So they had Labradors, and I love Labradors for that. And I used to take them out and blah. But more, I was into horse riding. So I did a lot of horse riding and a little bit of show jumping. Now, when I say a little bit of show, it's amateur. But I really liked it. And then a friend of mine said, at college, said, you know, they have a great horse show in Dublin, really good one. And I said, you know, I was born in Dublin. Wow, yeah, I must go. So I came to Dublin, I think I was about 19, maybe just nearly 20. And no, 19, I was still at college. And I was in Dublin for 48 hours, maybe 3 days. I was there for a week. And after 2 days, I thought, no, this is where I want to be. I absolutely love it. I mean, 19, I had no idea. And so I was studying archaeology because I love history. And so in a way, that's what I was thinking I wanted to be. And I thought, well, no, I don't really want to be that. So I actually rang my roommate and said, look, will you pack everything into my trunk? Keep the books, you know, give them to somebody else. I'm not coming home. Just, there's my money. I'm sending you the money. Send everything over, which he did. And just like that? I never went, just like that. Yeah. Just like that. And that comes from my grandfather. When I was 12 or 13 or 14, my grandfather said to me, Michael, you only go around once. But if you're very fast, you will go around twice. No, he did. And so I've been trying to do that all my life, to go fast. But anyway, so I didn't go back. And I'm delighted I didn't go back. Because, and yet I loved England, and I still do. I mean, yes, they have the great stately homes, but it's the wonderful villages, you know yourself, or, you know, the Cotswolds, and you come around there, you go to Suffolk or whatever, and you suddenly see this amazing village, and it's so beautiful, so beautiful.
So what was it about Ireland and Dublin that made you suddenly decide this is it?
Just the beauty of the town of Dublin then. It was absolutely a beautiful city. And O'Connell Street, where you've now McDonald's and everything is ruined, was just a joy to walk down. I mean, the buildings, superb. And Georgian, of course. And so then you had the Georgian squares like Marion Square and Fitzwilliam Square. But it was mainly the people, actually. The people, and I say this very objective because as I said, I have no Irish blood, but the people are just amazing for me. And I love their sense of humor. And actually, I must tell you a funny story. A friend of mine from that period of college, he's now at Queen's Counsel in England, and he came over to give a lecture to the Dublin courts and stuff like that. But he's like me; he likes old movies, so he went to an old movie, and then it was empty, hardly anybody there, and 3 girls came and sat behind him, and they started to talk about their night out and their boyfriends. And he turned around as the movie began. He had enough. He turned around and said, "Look, I've come to see this movie." And now, feck is not a bad word in Ireland. It just means, And the girl said, "Well, you're facing the wrong fecking way." And he thought it was so clever because she picked up on that one word of look. And instead of saying, "I've come to hear it," and he said, even in court in the Old Bailey, he wouldn't get somebody as quick as her to come back to him. So he was impressed. And that's that kind of humor and quickness of wit I love, actually, in Ireland. So I just, even though I'm living here now for a while, I mean, I could never leave Ireland. I just love, being in Dublin. Still love Dublin. It's changed a lot, but I still love it.
It is, yes. But that modern times. And so your first breeds were, if I'm correct, Old English sheepdogs.
I wanted a dog, because now I was living in Dublin. I thought, well, now I'm going to stay here forever. I want a dog. So I'd always liked Old English sheepdogs. And I said, yeah, I'm going to get an Old English sheepdog. And so somebody I knew who was a vet said, well, I've just delivered about 8 or 9 weeks ago a litter to a woman in Chapel Lizard, who you will know, called Stella Hart. I didn't know her at all, of course. And he said she still might have puppies, and he gave me the number. And I rang her, and she said, "Oh, well, I've only one left, and it's a female." And I said, "Oh, fine, it doesn't matter, it's only for a pet." So I went down, and she was so nice, and gave me the list of things to do and not to do. And so I took it home, and she said, "If there's any problem, just ring me, let me know." So about 5 months or something like that, maybe just nearly 6, I needed to just ask her something. So I rang her, and she said, "Oh, yes, and look, I'd love to see the dog. Would you ever just bring it back? I'd just love to see how she turned out." And I loved grooming. I didn't realize I would like it. So she was looking really well. So I brought her down, and she said, "Oh, Michael, your dog is really, really nice. Wow." And she said, "Why don't you show it?" And I said, "Well, why not? Maybe, why not?" And so she was entering Cork. It was a Cork show, and she said, "Why don't we go?" And she said, "You can, I'll be there." So I said, "Okay." So anyway, filled out form, went down to Cork, and you're going to ask me maybe a question. I don't know. Why do people stay in dogs? Now, let me just explain what happened. First of all, there was a crowd around Stella, and I was introduced to Fred and Ann Cuthbert, Olive Hannah, as Paul had been talking about before, Seamus and Geraldine Keane, who were showing dogs and still show Old English, Des Manton, people like that. And I was introduced to them, and everybody was so nice. Anyway, so I was in Open Bitch, and in those days, of course, it wasn't FCI, so it was the English thing of puppy, junior, novice, graduate, post, so all of those classes. So I was puppy bitch. So anyway, they said, "Oh, it's your turn. Go in." And they said, "Look, watch, the triangle and all of that." So in I go, and the judge from England, I can't remember his name, but anyway, down and back and around, blah. So I did all of that, and then the dog kept sitting a little bit, and I could see outside, lift it up. So, but I was, So anyway, he gave me first, and I came out and said, "Wow, I'm really pleased." And then, we're chatting away, and they said, "Oh, you have to go back in again." And I said, "Well, I've just been in." They said, "No, go in." They hadn't even got time to explain. So I go in, I'm standing at the end of the line, and all these dogs are, So the judge comes down, looks at my dog, and then he goes up to the other end, looking at the other dog, which I now realize was the open dog. Then he comes back down, and of course mine is sitting all the time, and I'm just standing there like a fool, holding a lead, looking at him, not even taking any care. And so eventually, he obviously goes, "Oh, well," and he goes up to the open, gives it, and he comes down to me and gives me the reserve ticket. Now, what made me come back wasn't that. If I had just won that and I'd gone to the show and nobody had spoken to me particularly, I wouldn't have come back. And for me, what makes people, first of all, is how welcome you are to people. And I think, even now, if you see somebody standing around the ring that you don't know and they have your breed, go to them and don't just say, I like your dog, and walk away.
Absolutely.
And if you've got a cup of tea or something, offer them, introduce them to other people, because it was that friendship of Fred and Anne and all of that that made the big difference to me, you know. And then
I think you make it's a very valid.
So that was eventually I made her up. I mean, you know, I'm the worst.
It is a very valid point, though, because
I'm the worst handler in the world, honestly. Always have been. Never changed. Dreadful handler. A dog would never do what I wanted to do. If they had a natural ability, so be it, and I would win. But they had to have it. I couldn't put it in there. And then I got a Cavalier through another, once again, my bank manager rang me. His name was Bertie. And he said, we'd love a Cavalier. Can you get me one? And I said, well, I don't know anybody in Cavaliers, which I didn't then. So I'll find out. So there was a Liz Ryan who I was introduced to. She was going up to the famous Ronnock kennels, Paddy Connor up the north. And I said, Liz, would you mind getting me a dog? There's the money. And she said, what do you? I said, he just wants a dog, not showing, just a dog. So anyway, she brings it back down. And within 2 hours, I realized the dog can never leave the house. And now it's a Cavalier. So we kept it. Now, Michael Leonard and I, as you know, we partnership with dogs and everything. So now, where I'm such a bad handler, on the other side of that coin is Michael Leonard, who is great at showing dogs and train a dog. So he takes over Bertie, because we named him Bertie after the bank manager, who I then quickly got another dog for him. So we go to the first show, he's 6.5 months old, and we go to Patrick's Day show, which are a big Kennel Club show. And the wonderful Pamela Cross-Stern is judging. And I remember Fred Cuthbert is standing with me outside the ring, because he just happened to be walking past. And the dog, Bertie, had won the puppy, okay? And so there's a big lineup again, you know, from the puppy right up to through the postgraduates, and they're all there because there was a big entry then, a really big entry.
Cavaliers were huge then.
Yeah, I mean, really big. And Bertie's on the eye, and I said, you know, I'm looking. And obviously Pamela says something to the steward, and Fred said immediately, Michael, I think your dog is going to win the ticket. And I said, but how do you know that? He said, because the judge has said something funny and they're laughing. And the steward instantly turned around and looked at your puppy. And he said, I think she said, I'm giving it to the puppy. And he was a judge for many years before, you see. So down she comes and hands him the ticket, and he gets best of breed. And now, I mean, you know, that was luck. You know, I mean, it wasn't that we picked a great... You know, and then the following year he won best of breed again at the Patrick's Day show, and then he became a champion and stuff like that. Now with Pamela, who I didn't know in a million years, of course. I mean, she was way up there. I was a novice, but I got to know her because we've judged a few times then, and then we judged in England twice. We judged Cavaliers, and Pamela and I had completely different tastes in Cavaliers, both correct, but different. And I remember the first time she did the dogs and I did the bitches, and we came into the ring and she wanted a dog and I wanted my bitch, and we argued and argued in a nice way, now really friendly. And so we called a referee. Then the puppies came in, we had to call the referee. Then the other came in, we had to call the referee. And then the second time I was judging with her, it was again Cavaliers in England, and like maybe 4 or 5 years later. And as the two dogs came in, the bitch, we just looked at each other, and she said, "Will we just? We didn't even open our mouths." She said, "Will we call the
referee?"
But you know, it's funny because just thinking of that now, there was a guy called David Williams who was a hunchback, a very nice man, but we had exactly the same taste in dogs, exactly. And I was doing bitches, and he was doing dogs. And when we looked at each other's, we argued for 10 minutes because I wanted his dog and he wanted my bitch.
Wow.
We were arguing to the opposite.
Amazing.
And eventually, I wore him down and said, no, I really like your dog. So eventually he said, okay, we'll give it to the dog. And when the handler came, or the owner, I can't even remember who it was, said, thank you to David. He said, no, you must thank the judge. He was the one who wanted your dog. So that can happen, you know. You don't have to have to win. It's what you think is the best.
And just going back to your point on how you sort of the how you were welcomed into dogs, etc., etc. Somebody's just asked here, do you think that dogs have lost that now?
No, I think people are just so busy. I mean, I
Mm.
think that humanity is there, but
Yes.
half the people, and even myself, you're on your mobile.
Mm.
And so you're not even aware that somebody is standing beside you that's new,
Quite
and
right.
that's just to have that awareness again
Mm.
of just to look around sometime and say, "Oh, somebody new." And I mean, let me give you a good example here now. About 2 years ago, I happened to be still in Dublin and not away, and there was a dog show on, and I went. And as I went in, I saw a guy, and he had two dogs that I've judged and seen abroad, but I'd never seen in Ireland. And I went to him and I said, "Wow, I like your dogs." And
Mm.
wow, and I said, "What is this one?" And he said, "Which one do you think is the better?" And I said, "The dog is now mature, but I think your bitch may be going to be better." I said, I said, I held one eye up and down and up and down. And I said, "No, I like your bitch. I think she's going to be the one." And his wife came along and said, "Wow." And he explained. And she said, "We've come to 3 shows and you're the first person to talk to us."
Wow.
And I said, "Wow." And in Ireland, that's so unusual.
It is, yeah.
And come under the radar. I mean, just maybe because they had dogs that nobody had. So I went to a friend that had Bernese, and I said, "Look, I'm bringing somebody over to you," and they knew, and I said, I explained a little bit about their dogs and what they do, and I said, "Will you look at and will you give them a cup of coffee?" Because I know they always have coffee. So he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," and introduced them to people.
Yeah.
So I brought them over, and I said they're very interested, and they chatted, and I left them then. And then about a year later, I think it was, I came to another show, and I was thinking, I was walking around, but there they were with a group. Now, they've only got, but a group of people around them sitting, and they've become friends, And I think that is truly the important thing.
Yeah.
Really the important thing.
So
And I don't.
you've already
I
mentioned.
don't think. Sorry,
Go
go
on.
on.
No, go ahead.
No.
You've already mentioned a few people in your early days showing, but who are the people who really influenced you when you started showing?
I think actually, I was, well, Stella, of course, and for Michael, Leonard would say exactly the same. And but one guy who, I mean, I've been showing a lot, and he said to me, and it was Sonny Plunkett, our chairman, and he was, we call him the president of the Kennel Club now, and he said one day to me, "Michael, you should become a judge. I think you'd do well. I think you'd like it, and I think you'd do a good job." And I liked Sonny because he was always on for new people.
Yes.
Be involved. He was always like that. And even when you didn't need new people because there were so many people showing, but he always wanted that, and I liked that in him. And I said, "Do you think so?" And he said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." And as you all, the Irish people will know, there was limit shows that meant nothing. If you made a complete mess, it didn't matter. But it gave you that experience. And it was in the CIE hall where a lot of judges started. So, as you know, I think our city is divided by a river. So you have north and south. And so you'd have all these silly classes. But as a judge, as a novice judge, you would get maybe 30, 40 dogs that were from the terrier group, the gun dog group, the toy group, all into one class. And, so you'd have to hands-on, and you'd have to know. And, of course, you didn't know so much because you couldn't do all of that. But it did help and to get that experience. And I think for me, Dog World is very like the theatre. It is so like acting in the theatre that you have the actors who are maybe the judges, if you want. Then you have the dialogue of the plays, which is like the dogs themselves, because there they are. Then you have the backstage, which are all the people who run shows and the produce and direct. So it's all very similar. And so so this hands-on is like an actor going on for the first stage with no lines, but it's important to get onto the stage, to know how to move, to know how to run, and so it gives you that experience of managing a ring. That's important.
But in those days, it was like a baptism of fire because the limit shows were so well supported.
Yes, yes.
And you really were thrown in off the deep end.
This is only for Irish now. I mean, people abroad won't understand this, but there were three older ladies at the time: Barbara, Scott, and what's the other one with the, you know them anyway. And, you know, they were always placed somewhere because they were very
Yes.
strong, forceful women. And truly,
Josie O'Brien.
Exactly, and whatever. And, you know, when I'd finished my judging and I'd taken my 4 dogs or 6 dogs or whatever, and I placed them, I came out and Sonny said, I knew you'd be a great judge. And I said, why do you think He said, no, but you threw out all of these people, which nobody ever did. So I said, oh, okay. Well, you know, but for me, Colin, I mean, when I'm judging, I know I make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
We all do, yes.
But I try always to put up the dog that I really like. I don't care what class it comes from. I don't care if it's a novice. If it's the one I want and I think it's the best one, it'll win, you know. And for me, that's very important. And, you know, I remember I was doing, I tell you a funny story, actually. Can I tell you a funny story?
Go ahead.
I was judging at Crufts and I was doing Cavalier. I was judging Cavaliers and a fabulous entry of beautiful, beautiful dogs. And so my lineup was great because because there were so many, like 250 males or something, I think. So you could get a lineup of. So when you had your final, they looked the same, okay? And I always ask myself at that stage, what is the dog you would take home? I do it very quickly in my head. Which dog would you take home? And my eye went straight down to the yearling class. Now, I mean, so I had the open and I had the great dogs up there, but I thought, no, that's the one for me. And so why I'm telling you this story is, it's one of the things I say to novice judges, you know, like follow your heart, use your brain, use your knowledge, but also use your heart, and then say to yourself very quickly, if you're in doubt, you've got your champion, an easiest choice if you want, but say to yourself quickly, what dog do you want?
Yeah.
Just home.
That's very good advice.
Yeah, but I said this to a guy some years ago, and he was from another country, and we were in, I don't know, maybe Australia, somewhere very far. And he said, I'm so nervous because I can never make up my mind with, and he was new, but it was his own breed he was doing. And I said, it's great you're doing your own breed. And I told him about, the dog you like, whichever one you like, take home. This is the dog for you. You must go with that one because it's the dog you really like. And don't let other influences influence you. So anyway, as luck would have it, he's in the ring next to me. And so the judge had judged him, and then he comes in to do his breeds. And I'm looking over, and he's put up quite a nice male. And then the females come in, and I'm not watching. And then just as I'm finishing, and I'm finished, I see the open females, and in comes this beautiful female. I mean, from outside the ring. Now,
okay,
big difference.
Yeah.
So she wins the ticket, and I said, okay. So anyway, I go off to lunch, and I'm sitting, and the group starts for his group, that group he was doing, and he comes and sits beside me at the group, and in comes the dog. And I thought, wow, I thought the bitch would have won best of breed to myself. And I said, oh, very nice. And I said, I liked your bitch as well. Now, I was waiting for him to say, well, her eye wasn't clear. And he said, oh, yes, he said, she was spectacular. And he said, but I took your advice. And I said, what advice? What are you talking about? He said, well, you told me the dog I would like to take home. And I said, yes, but you just said the bitch was the better. He said, yes, she was better. And I said, but then why did you go for the dog? He said, because I have some nice bitches at home, but I needed a nice dog. Give that advice to people. I really explain what I mean. What I mean. Yeah, and it's just funny, the English language can maybe, share something. And I never thought of it in that way. But anyway, that's another
and do you think new exhibitors and or young people, do you think they realize how important it is to have mentors? Because these days you have a lot of people coming into dogs who want an instant win, or they think they know everything.
But everything in our world nowadays is instant. Everybody wants instant, even instant coffee. No, but everybody wants instant. It's the way of life now, and we have to accept that. But mentor. I mean, for me, getting knowledge all the time is important.
Yes.
And I've been to a masterclass with people where they've asked me to their kennels to look at, or I've asked them if I could go. And really, there was one particular one, and and they were just kennel blind. I mean, they put a dog on, this is wonderful, this is wonderful, this is wonderful. And I thought, you know, it wasn't a breed that I knew that much of at the time. And I thought, but that first one looked much better than the third one now. It looks completely different. And one of my best master classes, I didn't realize at the time, but is my best one. And Sylvie, was Alicia Pennington of the Tudorhurst King Charles. And I'd gone to England and I was staying with Alicia, and that's where I met Sylvie in the first place. And she said to me, then all I had done was working dogs, working group, and I'd done Cavaliers. And she said, Michael, do you do King Charles? And I said, no. And she said, would you like me to, you know, give you a class? I said, absolutely, I'd love it. And we went out, and there was this lovely area with green and stuff, and she had all these dogs, lots of them. And she put one on the table, and she said, Michael, look at this beautiful domed head. See that? And look where the ears are placed. And she said, yeah. And she said, now hold on to him. And she read another one. And she said, I'd like a little bit more underjaw. She got another one. And she said, Michael, look at this beautiful, beautiful underjaw. You see that? The way it comes around. Look at the head. The dome is not quite as good as this one. So she was able to, you know, criticize her own dogs. And then went on with all different ones. And then eventually she put one dog on the table and she said, there you are. And it had everything. And it's like a door. When you get something like that, Colin, it's like a door opening up.
Yes.
And you have the knowledge and you have the eye. And for me, I think if somebody's going to go and do this kind of thing, don't just go to one person. Go to, if say it's Labrador, shall we say, try and find 3 or 4 to get
absolutely,
so that you're not just sticking to one person's. If they're not, you know, if they're closed-minded or, you know, they're kennel blind, you don't want to go down that road. You want to have this open mind of what the dog should be. But also, you know, mentors are meant, you know, like, for instance, I'm lucky I judge away with a lot of very, very good judges.
All right, keep going.
Yeah, with very good judges and stuff. Now, for me, I love Frank Kane, but unfortunately for me, he and Frank and I have the same interest exactly in music and in art. So when we're together, we tend to talk about that rather than dogs. But he has a book, which I got from him, and on it's an incredible book. It's an incredible book. And you learn from, like, all the standards there, but then he tells you on another page exactly what you should be looking for and what is essential to that breed. And also, so you get information like that. And also, I was very lucky to be doing one of the European dog shows, and I was judging beagles. For the first time, it's not for the first time, but for the first time in such a big show. And, you know, I wanted to learn as much as I could, and I managed to get a book online of one that Andrew Brace had written on beagles. So although you're not talking to the person, by reading the book, it's like talking to them. And it really helped me. I mean, you know, I was at this important show. I wanted to make sure that even my thirds and fourths were in my head, why they were there and that they should be there. Because, I mean, there was dozens and dozens of them. And eventually I ended up giving it to a beautiful veteran dog, actually. And, you know, I'm sure you found the same too. Sometimes you're away and you might have a good entry of maybe 50, 60 dogs. And the puppies are ordinary, the juniors are nice ordinary, the champions are ordinary, and then a veteran comes in and it's extraordinary. And for me, I'm always a little bit saddened not for the country, because you don't judge a breed from a country on 70 dogs or 50 dogs, but of the people who are there that they couldn't get. You know, I'm much like giving it to a puppy or a junior. You know, their quality is really there. But on this occasion, with this veteran, I mean, I think even when I gave him the best male, I think I said to the others, there's no reflection on your wonderful dogs, and they were wonderful. But this dog on the day, like, he was super. He never for a moment put a foot wrong. It
happens.
And so for him, that was, you know, I know, but what I'm saying is, to get as many books as you can on breeds, if you want to be different breeds. The Kennel Club in America do amazing,
fabulous,
amazing. I have them all, and I had them from years ago when they were in videos. Now I'm in, you know. So I mean, they're incredible, and they give you great insight to you know, dogs and stuff. And I'm just observing and watching, asking questions here and there. You don't need
to know. You know, you're so right, because I mean, you know, without sounding ancient, in the days when we didn't have the internet or we didn't have mobile phones to look up standards, I always found it fascinating sitting around. And I've had this discussion with other judges over the last few weeks, sitting ringside at Crufts or sitting ringside, just discussing dogs with breeders, and you learn so much, and not being afraid to keep learning. I mean,
Yeah,
there
but
you are. You're all breeds, and here you are, and you're saying, we're always learning.
continually, and
Yes.
and you also have pitfalls. You have pitfalls, and some of them. Actually, my first judging trip away was to France, and even the call was funny because I got a call and they said, "Is that Monsieur Forte?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "We'd like you to come and judge Carlin." And I said, "What are Carlin?" Now this is going back 30 years. I said, "What are Carlin?" And there's a pause, and she says, "Oh, mops." And I said, "What are mops?" And then she said, "Pugs." I said, "Oh." And then I said to her, "You've the wrong person. I don't have pugs." And she said, "Oh, are you Michael Forte with Cavaliers?" And I said, "Yes." "No, it's you we want." So I said, "Oh, wonderful." So I went out, and I'd only met Sylvie once. No, that wasn't Sylvie on the phone, but she's my ring steward, my secretary. And this is a pitfall that you don't read about, but I learned it on my very first way, and I've never done it since. And I'm judging the pugs, the first class, second class, everything is fine. And I look out the ring, and there's this pug sitting on a bench looking in. And I think, oh my God, what an amazing, amazing dog. And I say to Sylvie, just look over my soul here. Look at that pug outside. Now, she's not a judge either at this stage.
Okay.
That was long ago. Yeah. And she said, "Oh, it's lovely. Oh, yes. So we're both now enamored with this dog." So anyway, it comes in eventually, and it's going around, and it's lovely shape, tight tail, blah, 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 and a beautiful head. And the back end doesn't look so great on the side view. And I thought, oh, well, maybe. So put it on the table, and I said, down and back. And now it's so bad on the back, it's unforgivable. Okay. So I now go down on my knees, and I said, down and back. Eventually, Sylvia's got up from the table, truly, and she's standing beside me, and she whispers in my ear, and she said, "Michael, you've asked this dog for 6 times to go up and down. It's getting worse, not better." And I said, now, it's a great, but it was a great learning experience, because now, your eye sometimes sees a dog outside.
Yes.
Now when I say, "Oh, that looks lovely. I wonder, can it move? I wonder, is the eye correct?" And it's dismissed until it comes in, and that's, it's just a funny thing.
Yeah.
Oh, let me tell you the one about seduction and learning not to just go with your heart. I'm judging a big show, very big show, and I'm doing the females. And I'm walking down the line of the champions, and this bitch female looks up. Absolutely the most beautiful head I think I've ever seen on this breed. And my heart, and I think, oh my God, you're absolutely stunning. She's mesmerizing me. So I walk down the line, and I come back, and I now stand in the middle, and I take an overview, and I see this dog that has little short legs, and the dog and the breed calls for balance. And I said, oh, please now let it not be this particular thing. So of course they're coming in, it's big class of maybe 20. So and the 12th dog comes, and it's her. Okay. And I said, oh no. So I said, down and back, and I go over, and she's quite sad. And of course, because I'm now standing over her, she doesn't look so bad, And I thought, oh, you're really okay. Maybe I can forgive you now. So she's going around again. I don't like to go around, but then the head. So what I normally do when I'm picking, I have 8 in my head, and I go down the line again, look, and I say, please come out, please come out, please come out. And I take 1 step to do that. And I stop, and I thought, Michael, if you go down that line, you are going to pick her out, and you never know where this dog will end up. So I stood back and looked at them again, and I called them from there, and I only picked out 7, leaving her behind. So then a veteran came in, a lovely veteran. So I gave it to the veteran, who then went into the male judge, who was doing the males, and then she got best of breed. So I was really happy. But then people came back into the ring afterwards, and they said to me, thank you for your placings or whatever. And they said, we'd like to ask you about 1 female. And I said, would it be from the open class? And they said, yes. And I said, has it got the most beautiful head you've ever seen? Yes. And I said, why? And I said, because she's just not balanced. She's just far too short in leg. And they said, oh, that's good to hear. But she'd won something quite major before, they said, you see. And I said, oh, well, okay. Well, she was champion, obviously. And so they said, but the judge wasn't good. And I said, no, please don't say that.
Yeah.
That is not true. I said, truly, I said, if I'd have gone down that line again, I'd have picked her out.
Yeah.
If every time she looked at me, I'd have picked her out. God knows where she'd have ended up. She might have ended up winning the class, you know. And I said, I want you to tell me. Oh, sorry. I want you to nod. And when I get home with the catalogue, that I look up and I find her name is Matahari. I said, because she seduces you. And she really did. So I said, you know, you have to be strong sometimes. Yes. Stand away and say, the standard doesn't call for that shape. So I don't care how wonderful the head is. It's not, it can't. And it's a dog that has to do something. It's not a toy that sits on the sofa.
That's right. It is a trap you can get caught in.
So never again. So these little things to learn.
So when did you achieve all breed status?
I think in 2005. And you know, in Ireland at that stage, a very, very difficult, very difficult to become an all-rounder. I mean, I think I was the first all-breeds judge in 27 years, I think. And you know, you did it.
Yeah, you did it. You were the last judge to do it the hard way, because you had to judge every breed recognized by the Irish Kennel Club.
It takes about 25, 30 years, but
at least.
Fine. That's fine.
Yes, absolutely.
Fine. Yeah. But I think that the new ruling is a good rule, actually, because if you're 75% of the breed. See, don't forget, if you've got a lot of breeds, I mean, then when you come to a new standard for a new dog, I mean, you know the withers, you know the shoulder angulation, you know all of the terminology. It's just a matter of putting it together again.
Yes.
You know, it's not so difficult. It's not as if you're suddenly learning a new language or something. You're not. You know.
And roughly how many countries have you judged in now?
Well, if the virus hadn't have hit us, it would have been 61. So take 2 away, 59.
59. And it's spread right across the world.
Yeah, yeah. I've been lucky. But you know,
do you have a particular favorite continent?
Let me tell you, Colin. When I started to judge, my ambition, and my only ambition for judging away, was to do an open show in Cavaliers in England.
Really?
And that was all that was the height of my ambition, you know, and then just things began. And, you know, and I've loved it, you know. Now, funny enough, I mean, I've loved to travel, and I don't do it. I mean, funny enough, when I was looking for the list, because I knew that was the question, I traveled to 34 of the countries anyway on my own on holidays. So, you know, I love travel. I've been traveling since I was 15. And yeah.
And do you have a favorite country to judge in, and not a favorite show? Do they?
Well, I love, to be honest with you, I love judging in America. I love America. I love South America. I love Italy, Spain, Portugal, and France, because all of those countries have this vibrance about them. Outside, you can feel the passion of whether you're doing a bad job or a good job, doesn't matter, but you feel it, you can see it and feel it, and I love that. And, you know, I know one of your questions is, how do we see dogs now? For me, I know a lot of people are pessimistic, but I'm really optimistic, because when I first started judging, and after 2 or 3 years when I was going, like the real quality was in England, and it was in Scandinavia and Sweden. Really. It really was. But now you can go into so many countries and see world-class dogs that are good enough to win Crufts Best in Show or the World Show. They're everywhere. And that's, for me, a very healthy thing.
Absolutely.
And you know, my Colombia is going to come up in Bogota. It's going to come up a couple of times with other questions. But my best lineup ever, and I've judged many, many Best in Shows, many. And where you always get maybe, you know, a judge, you hope to get 3 or 4 that you really like, that are really high quality. And it's nothing to do with the group judging. The quality has to be there in the first place too.
Yes.
You know? But you always have 3 or 4 that you say, oh, there's my winner. But in this show, a small show in Bogota, maybe 300 or 400 dogs, maybe, and every single breed, every from the group, every single winner, I could have given Best in Show to.
Wow.
That fantastic. I mean, dogs had come from Peru, they'd come from Ecuador, and all over, and they were stunning. I mean, stunning dogs. And for me, that's great. And another thing, actually, I are in Bogota again. I was back again another time, and I gave Best in Show to the poodle, standard poodle, and beautiful. And the guy, handler I'd never seen before, he held the lead of the standard poodle by his thumb and his finger, and went down and back. And when the dog came back, it stood absolutely perfect. No trying to touch anything. He didn't touch anything. I thought, wow, what an amazing dog and a wonderful dog to go over. So we're getting a photograph, and I said, you know, I gave Best in Show to standard poodle last year in Beverly Hills. Yeah. I said, I know it's not the same dog, but he's very like him. He's very like him. And he said, well, we knew you'd like him because that's his father, was Dino. And I said, well, who's this one? And he said, it's Ricky. And Ricky, who'd won Best in Show at Crufts.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't know it had gone to Peru at that stage. To me, it was still somewhere in England. And it had just arrived. And they were just... So, I mean, a show that had 350 dogs and you get this amazing animal.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a random question here.
Yes.
You mentioned handlers, and just a random question here, because you would know a lot of the handlers and who they are. Do you, I won't say judge them differently, but are you more conscious of maybe they're really good handlers, so I'm going to see where the fault that they're hiding?
No, I don't do that at all. I mean, a handler's job is to hide the faults. Yeah, and the judge is to try and find faults. But I don't want to fault judge either. I'll tell you about the most shameful thing that I did in a few, when you asked me that question. But I don't want to fault judge. And so you go over the dog as if it's just I mean, they can't hide a dog. They can't hide a fault by when you're feeling it.
Yes.
And I judge it. Most of my judging is done on the move. It's not standing. And if I'm doing gun dogs, I don't have them line up and say Siberian Huskies that really have to move, and or Border Collies, for instance. For me, they have to move. And so they might be around the ring 2 or 3 times, 4 times even if I want, to see that, some of them go around once or twice and they're fine, and then suddenly they fall apart, where the others So no, I don't. I don't make any difference between a handler and an ordinary person, or somebody who isn't good, because I wasn't a good person. I mean, if I get somebody who's a novice, and I see they're nervous, and they say it's a dog on the table, I say, I really like your dog. I give them a little critique, and I say, it's got a beautiful head, and because I know I want to give it more, and so and I'm trying to calm them down, the handler, the owner, and I say, oh, lovely shoulders, and oh, really nice. I think your dog is going to move really well. No, I never do triangles. I don't particularly like triangles. For me, it just breaks the rhythm. And what I always hated was when they do a triangle, they do a circle, and they do again another circle. For me, it's so easy. They go up and down, and then do a circle and come all the way back to me. I think I see everything, and it's quick. It's not that difficult. And so I say to him, look, all I want you to do now is go down and back, and then around. Now, if I know that's the best dog, badly handled, but it's the best dog, I'm going first. And then when I give him first, I say, look, I really like your dog here. So I want you to watch now what's happening in the next classes and exactly what they're doing, and so you can do it. And like some of these dogs I've given the ticket to because they are the best. I don't care if it's not handled to perfection. That doesn't matter. Because the dog, if it's really good and well constructed, it moves in a natural way. It's good anyway.
So, aside from your own breeds now, do you have a favorite breed to judge?
No, I like all breeds actually. I really do. I find the most difficult ones to do are the Mastiffs, and Dr. Bordeaux particularly, and Dr. Bordeaux's and the Neapolitan Mastiff, that kind of thing. That although I remember being in Sicily 25 years ago, and there was a wonderful Finnish judge, and I was in my ring judging, and she said, Michael, just stop judging for a moment. I want you to come to my ring. So I went over to her ring, and she said to this guy who had Neapolitan, please go down and back and around, and the dog moved beautifully. Now, not untypical, but just strong and really good. And she said, never let anybody tell you a Neapolitan cannot move. You know, so little things like that come into play, you know.
And what fault really irritates you?
Well, I think balance, probably, funnily enough, because, you know, as you know, I'm a jeweler and I design and we make diamond jewelry and stuff like that. And so if one of my goldsmiths comes out with a finished thing and one side is slightly wrong and it's not balanced, I say, look, now we're talking in, you know, so a fault for me is in a balance. I work in millimeters and point off millimeters. That's my work. And so if it's a 0.5 millimeter wrong, I say, oh, come on. And so they have to take it all apart again and redo it. So for me, I suppose in my head, it's that balance and also lack of expression. I like a dog to have expression of its type, you know, so that if it's like a border collie, when they look at you, it's intelligent, and, you know, and they look back at you, almost as if some dogs judge you, you know. And that's why I love Cairns as well. For me, when you see them, you know, a Cairn Terrier, when you see them in a group outside and you're sitting outside and the Kerry Blues come in, you can miss a Kerry, you know, you can miss a Cairn and say, oh, it's, you know, you don't look at it. But it's when you're close to them and you're looking down sometimes, and they're like a little stick of dynamite and they're ready to kind of blow up.
Really good description.
I love that, you know. And I've given Cairn Terriers maybe a couple of best in shows, and I did I was honored, I was delighted to do the Tokyo Kennel Club show, which is an amazing show. What I loved about Tokyo, you asked me about Tokyo, is I adored Japan because the sexes never meet. So you do your dogs in your class, say you're doing, do them all, you pick the best male, off you go. You pick your best female, off she goes. So there's no best of breed at all. And then as a group judge, you get all the males in the group 8, and then you pick your best. And then all the females come in, and you pick your best one from the group. And then it's only, I did best in show, so I had all the 10 dogs. I gave it to a beautiful Pyrenean male, I remember. And then the females came in, and the judge had put up, one of the judges had put up the Cairn Terrier, and she was young, and a young girl showing it, but she was on fire. The dog was, so I gave her best female. And then it's only then, she was the queen of the show, he was the king, and it's the only time they meet for best in show.
Wow.
So that's really exciting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, really good. But also in Europe, I mean, once again, I love Spain and Italy and France and Portugal. They have amazing dogs. You know, like, as I said, every country has their dogs that are good.
And as somebody who judges abroad quite a lot, you're very used to critiquing. Do you see a value in critiquing, and what way do you approach it when you're?
You know, let me tell you a story. What I was telling you about Pamela Cross-Stern, and we went I think it was Scotland we were judging, and there was a long break, so we decided to go for a walk. And she was doing this article at the time because on the best critique we've ever heard, you know. And I said, oh, I heard a great one. And this white poodle comes into the ring, you know, beautifully presented and blah blah blah, a great handler, and the critique was all sizzle but no sausage. Now that's funny and it's sharp and it may be a little bit brutal, but it gives you the essence of that dog, that it has nothing in the, you know, it's no body. You know, it's very clever. But the one she had and why she was writing the article was amazing. And her father, as you know, had been a judge anyway. And he had been in Italy judging Pekingese. And this old lady had died. And so her son, who was also showing dogs, who was in his 60s, had found this critique that her father had given his mother. And so he sent it to her and said, I thought you might like this. It's funny. So, you know, it gave the critique on the head, which was very nice. And then it said, movement. Moves like a battleship in distress. But, you know, once again, you see it. You see that dog. It's a clever critique because you see it lumbering around the ring trying to get into harbor. And I thought, you know, that's so clever. But for me, you know, I mentioned the good things and the bad things. And even my best of breed might have something I would like a little, you know, because there's no dog that's perfect. So, I mean, but it's only a slight little critique of,
Yes.
of something, you know. And, you know, funny enough, when I'm giving, like, about maybe 8 or 9 years ago, if I could have done, I love countries where you can give puppies. I hope if Andrew Brace is watching, he doesn't take this as it's not, it's meant kindly. But when I'm about to give a puppy something, like, you know, like the ticket,
Yeah.
I say, oh, I'm to my head, I said, I'm going to do an Andrew now, you know, and, you know, because I know he likes puppies too. But with this baby, a French bulldog, and it was 5 months old. Now, Colin, if I could have been allowed to give that the ticket and the best of breed, I would have done. It was spectacular. But in a critique like that, where I've given a puppy a ticket, always in that critique, always is, there's no need for improvement on this dog, only mature. If I will never give a ticket if I say I'd like the front to be a little bit more, you know, baby-like. And it has to be absolutely a perfect miniature of what it's going to be. About 4 years later, 3 years later, I'm walking around a show in Germany now, to a different country altogether, and this woman stops me and she said, "Oh, do you remember me?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, you judged, I think it was Switzerland, you judged in Switzerland, and you gave my baby French bulldog, you loved it, and you won't remember." And I said, "Hold on." And I took out my phone and I went, and I said, "Is that your dog?" Because I asked her for a picture, you know, to kind of thing. And she said, "You have it after 4 years?" And I said, "Yes, I loved him." And she said, "I just wanted to tell you, he's a champion in 4 countries. So he did have the promise." Now, sometimes you give a puppy and you see it and you think, oh, it didn't have the, you know, the promise that it had. You know, you haven't given it the ticket, but you've given it maybe something. And you think, oh, it hasn't. But, you know, I said it to Pamela Cross-Stern because then I knew her. And I said, "Do you remember giving a puppy at Patrick's Day?" And she said, "Yes, I do, you know, because you do remember." And I said, "That was mine. And it wasn't shown by me, it was mine too. And Michael and myself." And I said, "Just to let you know, it did become a champion and everything." So she was pleased. You're pleased when something like that happens.
And do you like the CQ system? And do you think more countries should adopt it? If you do like it.
I do. I do like it because there are champions and then there are champions. You know, there's different qualities in champions. And that's just the fact of life. Some scrape through because they're good enough to be there. Some sail through because they're magnificent. So, yes, and I think to be able to say, yeah, I think it's a good system. But actually, I was judging away in Norway when it first came in. And I said to there was 5 left, and they were really gorgeous. No, but it had been a big class. And I said, she said, CK, and I said yes to all of them. You know, doing this to all of them. And suddenly she said it in Swedish or Norwegian, whatever. And there was this huge applause from everybody applauding. And I thought, oh, this is weird. So she came back and I said, "Why are they all applauding?" And she said, "Because you told them all that they were all." But she did the whole class, like 15 of them suddenly were all, not just, I meant the ones that were left in the ring, not all of them. But anyway, laughable.
And how do you deal with irate exhibitors?
I've only ever had 2, actually. Maybe it's the look in my eye if they try to, you know, I don't know. I'm good in the ring, I'm fine. But I mean, you know, I hate actually bad sportsmanship. That really, I mean, I'll put up with the most awful handling. I really can. I don't like rough handling either. And but if it's bad sportsmanship, I go berserk. And I handled one badly and one really funny. I'll tell you the funny one first. There was a guy showing, and he was clever. He was a clever breeder and a clever handler because he knew exactly which dog I quite liked, which was the one in front of him. And I saw him let the lead go so the dog would run up against the other dog. And he kept doing it. And any dog that was anywhere in contention, the good dog, he would, you know, like he'd go around, he'd rush into them. And I thought, no, this has to stop. So I said to him, "Please stand over there." And I pointed to number 1. So he thought he was number 1. So then I got him to move up and down and around again. And so I placed him. And then I called him over. And I said, all around. So he was first again. He was delighted with himself. And then I stopped him and I said, okay, to the girl, the one that I really liked, I said, "You're first, you're second." And he got 3rd. Now, the face of him. But anyway, but that was that one. But the other one was much more serious. And I was judging in Norway, and the breed, I won't mention the breed because now it's a long time, but still. And there was a big class, and this woman comes in with a dog and stands literally in front of another dog. I mean, just instead of going to the end of the line. And so I'm walking down and I say to her, can you move back a little bit? Can you move back, please? And she moves about 2 or 3 inches. So I now see the muzzle of the dog. I said, no, further back, please. And I now see the head. So I stood and I moved backwards, looking at this other dog that I wanted. So the dog and her had to move back. So I suddenly stopped and I called the steward and I said, would you ask her to go to the end of the line until we see where we are? So anyway, so she was now up front. No, she was in the middle somewhere. So I'm judging her dog, and a nice dog, a very nice dog. And I'm going down, and as I'm going, and she says to me, by the way, and this is the dog she knew I liked because she saw me looking at it, and she said, the dog behind you is got a terrible reputation for biting judges, and be careful, it's vicious. So I thought, well, so I took it on board, and maybe it was. So I came to the dog, and now I'm putting out my fist like this to its mouth rather than my hand. And the dog looks at me and the tail is wagging. And I say to the owner, is it okay? And she said, of course. And I thought, you know, that's so bad what that has done. So I go, he gets first, and the big open class, and she gets the CAC. And then the one that had been so obnoxious, and not just getting the dog, gets the reserve. So she did well out of like that. So then the champion class is called, and she comes in. And she says, oh, I have the top dog and the breed in Finland, but I'm not showing it under you. And turns to walk out. And I say, stop. And now, when I go for lunch, my secretary said, I screamed all of this, that I was screaming because I got so angry. You know me for what, 40 years now? Have you ever seen me angry? No, I don't get angry. But when I do, it's like a volcano, and but that kind of thing really annoyed me. So I said to her, well, screamed at her, and my secretary said, all the people came rushing over to see what was happening. It was that loud, and I'm screaming at her now and saying, you know, first of all, you come into my ring and you obscure another dog completely. You refuse to. When I'm judging your dog, you tell me that the dog behind you, which is the one that's got the ticket, is vicious and is going to bite me, which is totally untrue. So now I don't care if your dog is the best dog in Finland, because you're now in Norway, which is a completely different country. So now you can leave my ring. But I'm screaming this. Now I must have done quite a good thing, because 7 months later, I got an invitation from Finland to actually do the specialty of the breed. So obviously, you want to be really obnoxious people. And that annoys me more than anything.
So what's your biggest judging achievement?
Oh, before I say, well, let me tell you a funny thing in Italy, which was lovely. This guy, I know him well, and he was showing a Shih Tzu, and it was crabbing, you know, 4 legs, and he got 3rd or 4th or whatever, and he came and he said, Michael, he said, I'm so surprised. I thought you'd like him. I paid as much as a Ferrari for this dog. And I said, well, you know, I said, I've seen Ferraris, Guido, I've seen Ferraris. And I said, every time I see them going away from me, I see 2 wheels. And when they come, I see 4. I don't see 2. I don't see 4 wheels going and coming. Your dog is crabbing. So come on. So he laughed, and, you know, but yeah, anyway. So tell me what you're saying. Oh,
your biggest judging achievement.
Well, you know, I've been so lucky to do world shows, and like I did Bernese in Germany, amazing. Cavaliers, as you know, in Crofts, amazing. But I think I was thinking about it actually, and there's 2 things that remain in my head the most. One, I didn't judge at all actually, and in Italy at the World Show. Both are in Italy at the World Show, and it's the breeders' class. And breeders' classes here are not popular at all. You don't see them, we don't do them. But in the continent and Scandinavia, incredibly important. And you know, the dogs started to come in, and there's the wonderful handlers that do the Salukis. I think they're from Sweden. 4 girls, beautifully done, you know, and all of that. So all of those were there, and then suddenly, this small woman from Italy, who I know now, I didn't know then, comes in, And she's, I think, 4 or 5 Irish wolfhounds on one lead that breaks into 5. And she's behind them, and they're in front of her. And she goes around the ring. And it was like watching, you know, that movie Ben-Hur where they're in the chariot.
Yes.
But these dogs are in absolute perfect harmony together. And I thought, oh my God, that is so amazing. And I think people stood up and started to clap. I think she won, actually. But then the judging one for me was at that same show, at the World Show, I was asked to do Best Veteran. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get some amazing, amazing veterans here. And sure enough, they come in and I have to pick out 12 out of this huge amount. And even that was difficult. And there were 2 or 3 dogs that I really thought were, like, some I'd given a Best in Show to. Some that I'd given lots of awards to, so I knew a lot of them. And one dog which was spectacular, and I thought, this is the one for me, I'm going to go with. And when I was and I went down, and it was about 8, maybe 8, but the body was just lacking a little, you know, just a little, and almost unforgivable at that age. You know, the way old people get a little bit hollow. So the dog had, but beautiful and beautifully presented. And then another dog on the table, and I lifted the hair. The body was amazing. I lifted the hair back, and a little bit of watery on the eyes, the way old people get. I thought, oh, you're showing your age, okay, but still totally forgivable. And then I come to this border collie, and she looks up at me, and, you know, full of intelligence. Oh my God! And she's judging me as well. You know, it's really nice. And I thought, oh, you are just beautiful to look at. And so I go to the show, everything, and the body is, it's like a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old. Huge ring. I mean, it was a monster of a ring. And they had people positioned so they could do a triangle. So I said, please do a triangle. And I think sometimes when a dog is absolutely so well coordinated, so well regulated in everything, you know, the structure of the dog is so beautiful that the first step is correct, like a ballet dancer. Step is correct. They don't have to get, and off it goes. The head right. The wonderful stilt movement of just the barest amount off the ground. And it truly, at that moment, transported me. That's why it's special. And I thought I was looking at this dog going out to get the sheep. It was so spectacular. And I said, I don't care who you are. I've never seen you before. You have to be my winner. I mean, I'm giving it to you. I don't care. And she was. I mean, she was stunning. And that was the highlight so far of my, but hopefully a lot more.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, I'm going around the second time, you know.
And in terms of people, who are your heroes and dogs, past or present?
Well, I've 2 heroes, actually. Well, one I admire greatly for her imagination. And that's a woman in America called Patty Cannon. The Cavalier people will know her well. And she has Cavaliers, and she's done great work with Cavaliers, but it's not for that reason. And she runs the Beverly Hills show. And when I've been there twice. And the first one is an amazing show. It was the Beverly Hills in Long Beach, and a beautiful piece of ground with the sea there. And the backdrop is the Queen Mary ship, and the judges stay on the Queen Mary. Yeah. And, you know, I actually had the stateroom belonging to Winston Churchill. Now, that's a long, long story, which I'm not sure how I got that. But anyway, it's a long story, and I won't bore you with it. But I'm in the stateroom where Winston Churchill, when he traveled, always used. It had 2 bathrooms, a maid's room, stateroom. I mean, it was amazing. Anyway, so it was a great show in itself. You know, it was really an amazing show. I stayed with her for a week, and she was saying, you know, I'm thinking of, I'd like to make it, because it's Beverly Hills, different. I'd like to make it so it's to do with the red carpet, the Oscar kind of thing, and celebrities. I'd like a television company to film it the way they do Crufts and stuff, and Westminster. I'd like that. And, you know, I went back 2 years ago, and it's only the Beverly Hills show now. It's a 2-day show, 2 different shows, you know, show. And it was exactly how she thought about it. Exactly. And I'm going around, and I thought, you've achieved something that was almost perfect. It was perfect to everybody, but she wanted something special and different, and she did it. And, you know, I'm walking around, and I've given a junior class. I gave junior best dog, winner's dog. And the handler said, you know, can we have a photograph? I said, sure. So we go to have a photograph, And he said, the owner is going to be here and wants to thank you. I said, okay. So the owner comes in, baseball cap, stands on one side, takes a photograph, and then he comes around to thank me. And he said, I'm so pleased, thank you. And I look at him and I said, you're Captain Kirk from the Starship Enterprise, aren't you? Star Trek. And he said, William Shatner. He said, yes. He said, did they have that in Ireland? I said, they had that program, I'm sure, out of Mongolia. I said, everybody Star Trek. You know, that. And then I'm walking around the show and I see this lovely stand selling shampoo. And I'm looking at the shampoo to buy some for a friend, maybe, to bring home, you know, dog shampoo. And this voice says, can I help you? And I look up and I said, you're Bo Derek, aren't you? And she said, yes, you know. So they were all over the place. Now, there was lots of them that, you know, from television, from sport that I didn't know. But, I mean, everybody else seemed to know.
Yes.
You know, what I loved about her, she created what she wanted. And it's amazing. Now, my other one is my hero. And I met her 2 years ago. And we've been in, you know, I went to the show and I've been in constant touch with her nearly once a week. We send something on Facebook and stuff like that. And this sadness that's happened now, but I was going to be telling you this long before it happened, is in Beirut, of course. And I judged her. And her name is Helen Malik. And she doesn't show dogs. She has dogs, she doesn't show them. She doesn't judge. But with all these things that have been going on in Lebanon over the last years and years, she's tried hard to run shows, and she has. And she's, you know, when I came back, I wrote a little article and said, you know, she could charm the bird from the trees, and she could, because, you know, she so wanted the people in Lebanon to know about dog shows, and not easy, you know, to do something like that. And you know, she had all these guys that were out hunters. She talked into coming to the show. Now they'd sooner be out hunting dogs. They don't want to be at a dog show. She came, and it was really amazing. And it was our first. I gave the first international tickets. It was our first time to give the show to be international as well. So for me, she's a big, big hero. And when this bombing took place, I messaged her immediately, and she said, all my windows, all the glass in our windows in the apartment are gone. You know, they've just blown in. Yes. She said, everything's safe, everything, I'm all right. And, you know, and then like 2 or 3 days later, she's putting something on her Facebook about the dog show. You know, I mean, amazing woman. She's a big, big hero.
Yeah.
I love her. Big hero.
And throughout your career, you've been very active in various clubs, in many clubs. You're also a former member of the Irish Kennel Club. How important do you think it is to give something back to the sport? And do you think enough people are doing that?
Yeah, no, I think it's important, but it's also important, I think, and it's only personal, that you must maybe sometimes stand back to give other people a chance. And, you know, when I was on the General Purpose Committee, which is the director of the Kennel Club, I did it for 2 or 3 years, but there was so many other people wanting to be on it too. And, you know, and I told the committee like 4 or 5 months before I decided, I said, look, I'm not going to go forward again, you know. And they said, but, you know, and, you know, as you know, I mean, I was always in my voting, everybody votes, and I was always in the top 3 anyway and stuff. But I just felt, for me, it's better to give sometimes a break, to give other people a chance to do things, you know. And it's the same on a committee. If a committee is full, I mean, somebody can't join the committee. It's impossible because it's full. Yes. And so you need to have places for people to go. And in Ireland, you know, and you know this, and possibly England and other countries too, that they're not easy to offer yourself up as something. You know, you can't say, I'd like to join a committee. I mean, it's not something you do. It's embarrassing to actually say, I'd like to be on a committee.
Yes.
You know, so
that's quite correct.
It's a difficult thing for people. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would love to be on a committee, that would really love to be on a committee, that have no way of doing it, you know. And so, you know.
Just a question coming in here now from somebody that, is there any dog that you have judged that you would love to have owned?
2 was the...
Just keep going there now, I have to turn light on here.
Okay. 2, it was the veteran beagle that I gave the thing to, because I just loved it, full of, it's just on fire. And then, oh, and let me tell you another story in a minute. but also Lauren Picard had bred beautiful. Oh my goodness, a beautiful American cocker that I judged in Monte Carlo some years ago. I think the kennel. I think its pet name is Ricky.
Yes, beautiful dog.
Yeah, no, but it's not even that. Yes, I mean he got the best, but it wasn't that. But when I came to the table and he looked at me, I fell in love with the dog. I mean, it's my heart dog. I mean, still, and I don't know what happened. I fell in love with the dog, and I love it. And if I could have owned it, I would never have shown it. Just to take it home with me, put it in my house, and let him come to work with me. He was beautiful. But sometimes too. Luck can play a big part in a best in show. And I remember judging in Spain some years ago, and two of the judges on the night before at dinner said, "Oh, you're doing best in show. Oh, you're so lucky. Wait until you see the best in show ring. Every year, it's spectacular." Now, they didn't know what it was going to be. So anyway, I go, and the president of the club says, "I want to show you your best in show ring." So we go to an adjacent hall, and Colin, it was, oh my goodness, it was a big ring. It had a white wicker fence all the way around, and the carpet was of the clearest turquoise. It was like looking into a pool of the sea in Bahamas. It was the most beautiful color. The stand on the thing for the table dogs, made of wood, but it was marbleized, so that it looked like a piece of marble. And was this beautiful turquoise carpet. Okay, so the show begins, the best in show, and once again, fabulous dogs. There was a beautiful Basset Hound from Portugal, beautiful wire-haired fox terrier from I think Italy or Spain, can't remember. But anyway, I'm judging away, and the music was beautiful. And just as I'm finishing Group 8, the music changes. And the film had just come out of Out of Africa. And so the music suddenly goes on to that. And I say to myself, I haven't turned around. I said, wow, what beautiful music is that? I'd seen the movie. Oh, wow. And I turn around, and standing on this sea of turquoise is a beautiful Maltese. Now, I mean, the whole package. So I go over it. The eyes are beautiful. The pigment, the body, it has substance. And I thought, if this moves the way I think it is, I think I'll be my winner. So off it goes. And I mean, it is just incredible. So he wins best in show. So 3, 2, 1. And he comes rushing over with the dog in his arms saying, "Grazie, grazie." So I now realize he's from Italy. I didn't know him. And he said, "Thank you so much. Thank you." I said, No, stop. I said, first of all, you must thank a turquoise carpet, the film music from Out of Africa, and now your beautiful dog. I said, the three companies. If that had been outside and maybe it had been cloudy and rainy, or the grass was a bit, the dog wouldn't have maybe gone so well. So play you can be lucky.
Yeah. And now, on a more serious topic.
Yeah.
As a lover of our sport and as a judge, how do you think we can protect ourselves from government legislation and activists that currently are trying to wreak havoc with our sport?
Colin, when you think about it, the animal rights people are there because they love dogs. They love dogs. And we love dogs. Yeah. So we're almost, you imagine, on the same side, and yet we're not. And I think, first of all, I think our true enemy is the puppy farmers.
Yes.
More than anything.
Absolutely.
And public opinion is also very important. And because the puppy farmers are breeding pedigree dogs, I think we as ordinary breeders and good breeders and blah, blah, around the world are lumped in with them. They think, oh, it's just part of that group that breed, but it's not true. I mean, it's people just there for money, breeding and horrific. And it's a pity that we all don't just get on board together and try and stamp out that kind of thing.
Yes.
I think, yes, I've listened to your other people, and they're quite right. All kennel clubs should come together. But to do what? And the what is, I think, for me, just personally, might be silliness, but I think a new committee, a big committee, should be formed. And I don't mean a committee of presidents of different kennel clubs around the world. I think at this moment in time, that is not what's required. What you want are people who are, say, and there's so many people in dog world, that vets that have had a great reputation in their field, somebody, maybe a couple who have been lawyers or barristers, people who have maybe been politicians, so they know how a politician's mind works. I think we should employ a spin doctor who is good at changing public opinion. You know, when you think of, you know, you might be at a reception or a dinner party or a wedding, shall we say, and you know, you're trying to make conversation because you don't know the people, and they say, do you play golf? No, but I show dogs. And the first thing they'll say, oh, I've seen Best in Show. Now, it's a TV movie, and they probably think of us like that. And then there's another thing, if people will go after this and they go onto YouTube and you put in Mickey Mouse at a society dog show. And once again, it's the same. There are people that are going, you know, a limousine comes up and this English bulldog comes out and the woman in furs looking like her dog, in a long limousine with a bullseye, a woman with a big, you know, so, and then the judge is not nice, you know, so you have that thing of what people think. So what we have to do is show them we're just ordinary folk. We're not rich as such, you know, we're not from the landed gentry. Everybody is equal when they go into that dog show. And so that has to be changed. And I think also, you know, nothing like, it's a war, if you like. And the battle in the Netherlands has been won by the animal rights people. So there's one battle. But it's not going to stop there. And, you know, my breeds are not there, but truly, if there were 10 breeds that were from a group that I had no connection with, say, the Sighthound group, group 10, I would feel as strongly as if it was all mine. It's so important that we all come together as people. And also, you know, not just the kennel clubs, but us as people to talk to people that we know, you know, who don't know about dogs, to say, look, this is what we do. We breed dogs. We breed them because we love them. We breed her because we want to get healthy, good specimens. You know, we have to bring that over to the public. And because don't forget, I think politicians will always side with the public. If it's a public and they agree, oh, they go. So we have to change the way they perceive us, I think. And so
I mean, you make really valid points there.
Well, maybe, you know, but I'd like to.
The question I keep putting in, the question I keep having in my head is, okay, how do we, as judges that are scattered all over the world, put pressure on FCI, Kennel Club London, AKC to start forming these sort of groups?
Well, I'm sure they're probably behind the scenes, maybe beginning to do this. I don't know. But also, I mean, for a committee like that, with no, as I said, it's no good. And, you know, it's no good asking somebody from kennel clubs to go and meet these people. Because, I mean, they want to do well, of course, but they're not able for that because that's not their work. That's not their work, you know. So you need a really strong body of people that will be there to do that. And if they formed a committee like that, you know, if everybody gave the price of a cup of coffee,
absolutely,
€5, everybody around the world gave €5, that would be so much money to run that. And absolutely, and it's something like that you need something strong that when they go in, it's like a good army. They know what they're going to do. And don't forget the animal rights people. And I'm hoping with those animal rights people, there are a lot of ordinary, moderate people who just are there because they like dogs. And don't forget, you know, we're sort of saying how bad they are now, but when we see them on television and they're stopping a ship from killing whales, we cheer them and say, wow, that's great. So, like, you know, if we could get them on our side as well, so that then say, look, it's these the bad breeders and that are really the problem here, that are breeding bad dogs, you know.
Okay, so we're going to lighten the mood now a little bit. And I have a specific question somebody's just asked me here. So your funniest or most embarrassing moment as an exhibitor or judge? And somebody asks, can you mention the San Remo bus story?
The San Remo
bus story.
What one is that, I wonder?
I have no idea.
Okay. Anyway, I'll tell you my funniest first.
Yes.
And I was judging two. Once again, back in Colombia. And I forget the breed, but it was a big issue. Anyway, it's a breed. Shall we say Labradors, just for the sake. It wasn't Labradors, but... And this big man comes in. He's like a Goliath. And I'm big, but he makes me look really small. And I give him best puppy. And he laughs and he cheers and he's, oh my goodness. He goes hysterically nice, you know. So off he goes. So then next class. And then a young boy comes in, about 14. And I give him first. And once again, outside the ring, you hear this huge laughter and cheering. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And my steward, and I say to my steward, I think I know who. That must be his son. And he said, yes, I think so too. So we laughed, but that was it. And then, so all of that is done. Then the intermediate bitch comes in with a young girl, maybe 15, 16. And the dog is beautiful. I mean, I haven't seen anything so good yet. And so she wins her class and is cheering again. So now it's obviously his daughter. And so I go to the open and the champion and I say to my steward, I don't know what this man is going to do now because I'm giving everything now to the intermediate bitch. She's beautiful. So I do it. And the cheering and all around the ring is laughing at this, of course. So suddenly I get a tap on my shoulder. And I turn around and it's him. And he's like, well, he seems like 7 foot, big. And he picks me. But in his excitement, he's turning around. So we're like a whirlish dervish. And we're and my feet are off the ground now. And, you know, and it's going around. And then he stops. And I'm dizzy. He's a bit dizzy. And he goes to kiss me on the cheek. But as we're kind of dizzy, our mouths actually collide. Instead of pulling back, you know, he's got me like this. He just stayed like this, and everybody's laughing. And I'm trying not to laugh because my mouth will open, which, you know, is not good. So I'm like this, and then he lets me go. And that was really fun. But the best one was, I'm judging in San Remo. So maybe that might be the one. I'm judging in San Remo. There was two happening in San Remo, but I'm judging in San Remo. And I'm doing chihuahuas, and so I'm, you know, they're feisty little things. So, and it was a really nice chihuahua. And as I come down the side of the dog, and there's a distraction outside the ring, somebody makes a noise, so I kind of look, and the owner looks, and the dog just bites me, just there. Okay. Yeah, and so I go like that, you know, with fright, because nobody's ever bitten me before. I go like that, and I hit the dog in the head, and flies off the table onto the ground. Oh my God, the dog is dead. So it's back on the table. So I look at her and she looks at me and I see a little bit of blood and I said I could disqualify now, and then she could run to the secretary's office and say, he hit my dog, it flew off the table, everybody would have seen it. So I thought, okay, the best thing to do in this occasion is we start again. So she holds on and I do the body and up and down. And it was a great little dog actually, but he gets 3rd or 4th in his class and doesn't get disqualified. So I'm judging in Italy about 7 or 8 months later, and in another park down the other end. And as I'm walking to lunch, this woman stops me and she said, hello, do you remember me? I didn't know she spoke English at this stage. And I said, yes, I do. Looking for the dog, you know, there's no dog. And I thought, oh God. And she said, and beautifully put, she said, do you remember the incident? And I said, yes, I do. And she said, well, I wanted to tell you, you know, when he was young, he was doing really well. And for the last 2 years, he's always growled at judges. So he's never won. And she said, but he's never tried to bite anybody before. But she said, since the incident, just to let you know, he's had 3 CACIBs and 2 best of breeds. A judge can now do anything with it. But now, for judges out there, I don't recommend you do that with your dog. But, you know, it was just one of those funny things.
So apparently the bus story involves you introducing yourself to a bus.
To a bus.
of people? A bus full of people?
Oh, maybe were they going home? Oh, I jumped on a bus and God, there's so many things I've done that are so bad.
Okay.
No. Okay. Sorry.
Right. Okay. So, oh yeah, what did famously happen in Holland?
Nothing. You asked me that before, and there's nothing.
Okay.
No.
Right. Okay. So, if you could not live in Ireland, where would you live?
Now you're going to that. Now I'm living in Spain as well now, and I love Spain. But funnily enough, I told you I didn't know what I wanted to be when I was younger, and but now when I was about 35, 40, I realized exactly what I wanted to be, and I'd love to have been an Egyptologist. I mean, I love Egypt. I love Egypt. I've never judged there, so it's not a judging thing that I go to, but I've been there maybe 10 times, 11 times.
Okay.
I've been all over. And I was going this year actually, but cancelled now. And but I love it. And I love the history of it. Everything is still there, and people are lovely. But even in my will, I have it that my ashes are to be spread in front of the Sphinx.
No.
Yeah. And spread it in front of the Sphinx. And I don't care which way the wind is blowing, because if it's going out into the desert, so be it. I love Cairo as a city, as I do. I love Delhi as a city, because even though I'm quiet really at home, I don't go to clubs or never did bars and all that kind of stuff. I like kind of reading and stuff, but I love being in a city that has maybe 20 million people, all sort of. So it's like a river that's flowing fast, and you're part of it, and I love that. So even if it blows into Cairo, I don't care. My ashes would be somewhere. So yes. But if I could live there for a while as well, I'd love that, just to go around and look at everything and see them. And when I go, my first thing is I always have a taxi guy now who I employ for the whole day, who takes me everywhere that I want to go. And he doesn't even ask me now. We just head straight to the street, and I just stand there for an hour looking at it. It's magical for me. I love it.
Yeah. So you first introduced Bernese mountain dogs to Ireland.
Yes.
Famously. What drew you to the breed, and if you could, would you have another one?
I would have another one, absolutely. And what happened was I was showing in Peterborough, and I was showing Cavalier and no, Cavaliers, I think only. I don't think we brought the Old English. And as we opened the door, one Cavalier particularly always seemed to want to get out, and didn't go far, but so it went around the tent, a tent. So I had to run after it.
Okay.
Suddenly, as I came around, she had met this Bernese mountain dog who was now looking down at her, sniffing her. And I looked and I thought, God, you are the most beautiful dog I think I've ever seen. Wow, what wonderful are you? And so that's when I fell in love. When I fall in love very quickly, as you know. So I fall in love. I have to get one. So we got two, and once again, I'm very lucky. For some people, that I don't. Such a bad show thing. And Michael, of course, was great at showing his. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6 dogs that we got all became champions. And it wasn't as if we were well known. We weren't. We were just still at that stage of being ordinary. You know what I mean? So it wasn't anything. Just the dogs were good. We were just so lucky to get. It was just luck.
And in fairness, in the time you were been showing Bernese, the system was a lot harder because you had to have major green stars.
Yeah,
major tickets.
People, to make an Irish champion then, say in Cavaliers, you had to have 40 points. And 4 of those had to be majors. So you had to have a 5-point. 4 of those 5. Now, to get a 5-point, you had to beat, in bitches, I think it was 36. So I had to beat 35 females just to get a 5-pointer. And even if you had 500 points and they were all 4-pointers, you could never become a champion, ever. Yeah. So it was difficult, but it was great fun,
Yes.
But for me, actually, Colin, I loved breeding dogs, the Bernese and some Cavaliers, and selling. People taking them, and there was a lot of people who'd never had a champion, and they wanted the dog, and I gave it to them, and so they made their dogs into champions. My dog, which I like, and for me now, I would love, as soon as I get time and whatever, I would love to start breeding again. Really. And yeah, and I'd like to get the reputation of having really nice dogs, and for people to say anywhere, saying, look, go to Michael, even if he thinks it's going to win Best in Show and Crufts, he'll give it to you because he doesn't like showing. And I don't even have to own it, actually. You know, I wouldn't want it in my name, just that I bred it and sit and watch somebody new just showing it. I would love that.
Would there be a particular breed you'd go back into?
I don't know yet. I mean, I like so many breeds, actually. I love Cavaliers. I had Tibetan Spaniel. I love Tibetan Spaniel. Leonard might have beautiful. Oh my goodness! And you know, we were stupid because I think Solo, which is the Tibetan Spaniel, had 2 CCs, and we never went back for another one. And the same with my Cavalier Vicky. Like she had, I think, either 1 or 2. And I know a lot of judges who came over from all the specialists when they came to Ireland, put her up, and they all said, we absolutely love her. And I know if I come back and I got the other one, but I don't know. I mean, it was just the showing bit. I liked other things. I liked stewarding. I liked all the other things, actually. And that's the good thing about our hobby, sport, passion, is that there's so many aspects of it.
Yes.
You know, some people like to run shows. Some people like to judge. Some people like to just steward. Some
Absolutely.
people show. Some people like to be. So there's loads of things that, you know, you can go for.
So that brings us to our last question, Michael. If you could write your epitaph, what would it be? Preferably in hieroglyphics.
I think there's 2. I think he did his best when it comes to judging, you know, and I try to do. Well, let me tell you my disaster. Have we got time?
Oh, go ahead. Yes, we've all the time in the world.
It's a disaster, and I'm ashamed to even tell you about it because it was a real mess that I did, a real mess. And I was at 4 shows, and on the first day, the Bernese, my own breed of all things, and it came in, and I was with, I forget who the judge I was with, and he said, oh, there's the Bernese, what do you think? I said, oh, it's like really weak top line, I don't like that. And then the next day, I was sitting with him again, and he said, oh, it's the same Bernese. And I looked and I said, no, it's not the same Bernese, but it's the same top line. And the third day, it was one of the 2, whatever, in Batham. And so I went into that ring thinking, I am not putting up a bad top line, you know? And so I started with the puppy, which was fine. But then I started with the classes. And, you know, I got to the open dog. I got to the best dog, gave it. And I got to the best bitch and gave it. And then I looked at the dogs. And I thought, oh, my God, Michael, you have made a complete disaster. Now, I mean, a total disaster. I mean, Bernese, 9x10 and shape and everything. And I'd ended up with almost a square dog and an overlong female. And I thought, how? And it suddenly occurred to me, all the things that I had thrown out, no, not thrown out, but given seconds and thirds to, and this sort of offhand matter, because of the top line, where they were better dogs, you know. And when I went back, maybe a year and a bit later, I thought nobody's going to enter at all. I'm not going to enter, but they did. And the dog that I'd given the ticket to was there. We've got now 6th or something, you know. He got pulled out, whatever. And I came to him and I said, "Oh, I remember you. You got." And he said, "Yes, yes." And it wasn't his fault, you know what I mean? It wasn't the guy's fault. But I can now, and some of the dogs that won were probably there on the day. And now I've got my head correct in, you know, not fault judge. That was the first time I'd actually, I think, fault judge it, you know, and it's a disaster. It happens. You know, yeah, but it shouldn't either. And not for, okay, it can happen for one class maybe,
yes,
not for the whole breed, for goodness sake, you know. And that was my biggest shame, you know. And, you know, funny enough, the judges that I respect more are the ones, I mean, a very good friend and a man I met very early on when I was and was a man from America called Bob Curtis. A lot of people would know him. He was called Uncle Bob, a great, great man. And he said to me, "Michael, always be courageous." And he said, and another thing he said to me, "Always be your worst own critic." And, you know, there's probably exhibitors maybe listening here, and they go home and say, "Oh God, I should have won the CC. I didn't like the dog that got the CC and I only got to reserve." There's many a time the judge will come to the dinner table or to lunch and they said, "Oh, you know, I think I made a mistake. I should have and they're anxious about it. You know, it's not a sort of they go out of the ring thinking, "Oh, I don't care," but you think about it and you think, "Oh, I should have done better.
Yeah.
I should have, you know, I made that, you know, and maybe if it could even be a third that should have been second, you know, and you think, oh God, I did that wrong, you know." So like judges have this thing of being, you know, thing about themselves too.
Okay, Michael, it has been an absolute privilege and a joy to talk to you. It's brilliant. You've been brilliant.
Well, I hope you haven't bored everybody now with all this.
I doubt that very much. I doubt that very much. And thank you very much for taking the time out. My next guest will be Petru Montan from Romania, which I'm very much.
Never heard. No, he's a wonderful man. Absolutely fantastic. He'll be brilliant.
And very much looking forward to that. So stay tuned, and I will post dates. And in the meantime, Michael, love from Rita, love to Pascal, and it's been an absolute joy.
Buenas noches.
Good night.
Ciao. Bye.